The idea that truth has the power to silence even the loudest voices is not just a statement about honesty. It is a reminder of the unique force that comes from speaking with conviction. In a world where noise often replaces wisdom and volume is mistaken for strength, truth stands as the one element that does not need to shout to be heard. When someone speaks truth, especially in a setting filled with authority, debate, and conflicting agendas, it carries a weight that cannot be ignored. People may disagree with opinions, strategies, or ideologies, but truth has a clarity that cuts through confusion, fear, and manipulation. This is why even the most dominant voices, those shaped by power, ego, or influence, often fall silent when confronted with something undeniably real. Truth exposes their weaknesses, highlights their contradictions, and forces them to confront realities they might prefer to avoid. Truth is powerful because it does not rely on force. It relies on authenticity. When someone speaks from a place of genuine belief, supported by facts, integrity, and moral courage, their words command attention without demanding it. Even critics find themselves listening because truth triggers a natural reaction of reflection. It makes people pause. It makes them evaluate. And sometimes it forces them to rethink everything they believed was certain. In moments like this, silence is not a sign of defeat, but a sign of recognition that something meaningful has been spoken. Another reason truth silences loud voices is that it carries a kind of moral authority. Loudness can intimidate, but it cannot erase authenticity. When someone speaks the truth boldly and with full ownership, it shifts the energy of the room. It changes the dynamic from argument to understanding, from posturing to clarity. Even those who disagree instinctively understand that something deeper has been expressed. Truth reaches not just the mind but the conscience. It reminds people that beyond politics, beyond pride, beyond personal gain, there are principles that stand taller than individual agendas. Truth also has the ability to break illusions. Loud voices often rely on creating confusion or distraction to maintain influence. But when truth enters, it brings focus. It reveals what is real and what is false. It simplifies what has been made overly complicated. It exposes the motivations behind the noise. And when illusions break, silence naturally follows because there is nothing left to hide behind. That silence is not weakness. It is the moment when clarity finally rises above chaos. The idea that real leadership requires fearlessness rather than the desire to please is a principle that has defined every transformative figure in history. True leaders do not rise by chasing approval or shaping their message to satisfy the expectations of the crowd. They rise because they stand firm in their beliefs, even when those beliefs are difficult, unpopular, or challenged by powerful opposition. Leadership grounded in the hunger for validation becomes weak, inconsistent, and easily influenced. It bends under pressure, changes direction to avoid criticism, and loses credibility when circumstances become tough. But leadership rooted in courage remains steady. It does not waver when confronted by loud objections or hostile environments. Instead, it grows stronger because fearlessness creates stability, and stability inspires trust. Fearlessness in leadership is not about aggression or domination. It is about clarity. A fearless leader sees the path ahead even when others only see risk. They understand that progress demands decisions, and decisions often bring resistance. Instead of retreating in the face of conflict, they walk into it with purpose. They are willing to stand alone if necessary, because their focus is not on how many people approve of them, but on what is right, necessary, and beneficial in the long term. This commitment to principle over popularity is what separates those who merely hold positions from those who truly lead. It is easy to speak loudly when everyone agrees with you. It is much harder to speak with conviction when the room is divided, when powerful institutions oppose you, or when your stance threatens comfortable narratives. Yet it is precisely in these moments that fearlessness reveals itself. A leader driven by the desire to please often sacrifices truth for comfort. They avoid strong positions, soften their message, or attempt to satisfy every side, ultimately satisfying none. The absence of courage creates confusion because people cannot follow someone whose direction shifts with every criticism. On the other hand, people naturally gravitate toward individuals who are decisive, steady, and unafraid to express what they believe. Fearlessness becomes a signal of reliability. It shows that the leader is motivated by purpose, not applause. It reassures others that the path being taken is chosen with intention, not shaped by fear of backlash. Leadership built on courage also inspires others to find their own strength. When people witness someone standing firm in the face of challenge, it gives them permission to do the same. It reminds them that integrity is more important than acceptance, and that progress often begins with one person refusing to be silenced by the pressure to conform. Such leadership becomes a catalyst, creating a ripple effect that strengthens communities, institutions, and entire societies because fearlessness is contagious and conviction awakens conviction in others. The idea that greatness is built in moments of crisis rather than in comfort reflects one of the deepest truths about human character and leadership. When everything around us is stable, predictable, and easy, there is little demand for extraordinary strength. Comfort rarely forces growth. It gives a sense of security, but it does not test conviction, resilience, or purpose. It is in the moments when circumstances become difficult, when uncertainty rises, and when everything seems to be falling apart that a person's true character is revealed. Crisis strips away illusions and exposes what someone truly stands for. It forces choices that comfort allows us to avoid. In these defining moments, individuals discover abilities they did not know they had, clarity they had never accessed, and courage they had not needed before. Crisis becomes a furnace where ordinary people are shaped into leaders not because they seek the spotlight, but because the situation demands more than the average response. Greatness emerges when adversity pushes someone to rise above their fears. When the environment becomes hostile or unstable, the natural instinct is to retreat, hesitate, or protect oneself. But those who achieve greatness choose a different path. They lean into the difficulty and decide to confront challenges head on. They understand that progress often requires walking through storms rather than waiting for them to pass. Crisis demands decisions that define futures. It forces a leader to think with clarity, act with precision, and persevere with patience even when the outcomes are not guaranteed. In these moments, the weight of responsibility becomes heavier, but the opportunity for transformation becomes greater. A person who remains steady and purposeful in crisis demonstrates a level of strength that cannot be taught in calm times. Moments of crisis also separate genuine leadership from superficial confidence. Anyone can appear strong when nothing is at risk, but true strength is proven when pressure is intense and failure seems possible. A crisis reveals who has the discipline to stay focused, the resilience to push forward, and the integrity to stay aligned with their values even when it is difficult. These qualities are what inspire others to follow. People are drawn to those who stay calm, decisive, and unshaken in the face of turmoil, because such individuals become symbols of stability. Their actions demonstrate that greatness is not a product of circumstance, but of choice. Crisis also creates clarity. It removes distractions, reduces excuses, and forces direct confrontation with reality. It reminds leaders that comfort is temporary, but duty is constant. In these defining times, they discover not only what they are capable of, but also what they are meant to become. The belief that a single strong voice can influence the world, even in a divided and uncertain global environment, is rooted in the way human beings respond to clarity, conviction, and moral certainty. Throughout history, powerful change has often begun not with a crowd, but with one individual who refused to remain silent. In times when society feels fractured and leaders seem uncertain, people naturally search for a voice that speaks with purpose. A single individual who communicates with unwavering confidence can cut through confusion and become a guiding force. This influence does not depend on the size of an audience, but on the strength of the message. When a person speaks with authenticity and courage, their words resonate far beyond the room they are in. They awaken something dormant in others, whether it is hope, determination, or the realization that silence is no longer an option. A strong voice becomes even more powerful in a divided world because division creates a vacuum of leadership. When people witness endless disagreements and see leaders trapped in hesitation, they become more receptive to someone who offers direction without fear. This does not mean that the strong voice must always be loud. What matters is that it carries conviction. When others sense that the speaker believes deeply in what they are saying, they instinctively listen. A strong voice builds momentum by giving people a clear point of focus, a sense of stability, and the confidence that change is possible even when circumstances appear overwhelming. Influence grows not by force but by consistency, and when a message remains firm in the face of doubt, it becomes a beacon for those seeking clarity. A single voice can shift entire debates because it challenges the passivity that division often creates. When societies are uncertain, many individuals hesitate to take a stand out of fear of criticism or isolation. But once someone demonstrates the courage to speak boldly, it gives others permission to do the same. What began as one voice becomes a chain reaction. People who once remained silent find renewed strength, and those who were unsure become motivated to act. The influence expands not because the speaker demanded authority, but because they embodied the strength that others wished they had. The world changes when one person refuses to be intimidated by the scale of the challenge. Even in global institutions where many voices compete and countless agendas collide, a single strong voice can redirect the atmosphere of the room. It can silence tension, reshape expectations, and remind everyone present that leadership is not about numbers, but about moral presence. In uncertain times, people do not follow the loudest voice. They follow the voice that stands firm, speaks truthfully, and refuses to bend under pressure. The idea that standing tall is an act of responsibility rather than arrogance reflects the deeper meaning of leadership and moral clarity. Many people misunderstand confidence as pride and strength as superiority, but true leadership is rooted in purpose, not ego. When someone stands tall, they are not elevating themselves above others. They are stepping into the position that duty demands of them. In moments of uncertainty or conflict, people naturally look for stability, direction, and courage. Someone who stands firmly, speaks clearly, and remains unmoved by external pressure becomes a source of reassurance. This posture is not about self-glorification, but about accepting the weight of responsibility that others cannot or will not carry. Taking a strong stance requires discipline, clarity, and a willingness to face criticism, none of which are driven by arrogance. Instead, they come from understanding that leadership often requires becoming a visible anchor when everything else feels unstable. Standing tall becomes even more necessary when the truth is at risk of being overshadowed. In environments where fear, confusion, or political pressure dominate, Shrinking back or softening one's convictions only deepens the uncertainty. A person who stands firm communicates that some principles are too important to compromise. Responsibility demands that these principles be defended openly, even when it invites opposition. The willingness to endure that pressure is what separates genuine leaders from those who seek only comfort or approval. Arrogance seeks recognition. Responsibility seeks to protect what matters. This difference becomes clear in the way a leader speaks, behaves, and carries themselves. When the intention is service, not self, promotion, standing tall becomes an act of integrity. A strong and upright posture also inspires others. People draw courage from those who appear unshaken. They begin to believe that challenges can be faced and overcome. A responsible leader understands this and accepts that their strength is not for themselves, but for those who need a model to follow. This influence does not come from force, but from presence. In a world filled with hesitation, even a single steady figure can shift the behavior of many. Their refusal to bend creates a chain reaction of confidence in others who are tired of weakness and indecision. The act of standing tall becomes a silent encouragement, reminding others that dignity and courage are still possible even in difficult times. Responsibility also requires consistency, and standing tall means maintaining one's principles regardless of changing circumstances. A leader who remains steady shows that their actions are shaped by values, not convenience. This consistency builds trust, because people learn that they can rely on someone who does not collapse under pressure or abandon their beliefs when confronted with opposition. Such strength becomes a moral obligation, a promise to uphold what is right even when it is not easy. The idea that history remembers those who speak boldly rather than those who choose silence in critical moments reflects the timeless truth that courage creates legacy. Throughout every era, progress has been shaped not by those who blended into the background, but by those who dared to challenge the status quo. Silence may bring temporary safety, but it leaves no mark on the world. Boldness, on the other hand, carries risk, attracts criticism, and often comes with personal cost. Yet it is the very element that transforms ordinary individuals into figures of influence. When someone speaks boldly in a moment when others hesitate, they become a reference point. Their words travel through time because they capture the essence of their moment with clarity and conviction. History naturally gravitates towards such voices because boldness reveals truth without fear, and truth spoken in decisive moments becomes unforgettable. Bold speech matters because it disrupts passivity. When challenges arise, societies often fall into patterns of hesitation, waiting for someone else to lead the way. The majority remains silent not because they lack opinions, but because they fear the consequences of expressing them. In such situations, the one who steps forward and speaks with strength becomes more than a participant. They become a spark. Their courage breaks the tension that silence creates. It signals that it is possible to oppose injustice, resist manipulation, or defend principles even when it feels uncomfortable. This bravery encourages others to find their own voices. Boldness does not exist in isolation. It triggers awakening. Over time, this awakening becomes movement, and movement becomes history. People remember bold voices because they define turning points. When a leader or individual speaks plainly, strongly, and without apology during a moment of conflict or confusion, they provide direction at a time when clarity is rare. Their message becomes a marker that future generations use to understand what happened and how change began. Even if such a voice is unpopular in its own time, history has a way of recognizing its value later. Many of the figures celebrated today were once criticized, mocked, or dismissed, yet their commitment to truth outlasted the noise around them. Silence cannot achieve this because silence leaves no evidence of conviction. When someone refuses to speak, their absence becomes invisible in the long story of events. Bold speech also carries moral weight. It shows that the individual values principle over comfort, responsibility over approval, and truth over self-protection. These qualities resonate deeply with people because they represent the best of human character. Over time, boldness becomes a symbol of integrity. It reminds future generations that even in moments of great uncertainty, someone chose courage over silence, and that choice changed the direction of their world.